When you're multiplying things together, you add exponents. And you multiply the coefficients. If you're unsure what a coefficient is, a coefficient is the number that's in front of the x's or the y's. So if there's more than one number in front of the x's and y's, you multiply those, but you add the exponents. So on the first one, it says x to the third times x squared. You just add the 3 and the 2, and you get x to the 5th. On the second one, you add the exponents, so that's where x to the 7th comes from. But then you multiply the 2 and 3 together because they're coefficients. So 2 times 3 is 6. I don't know where that equal come from, but anyway, so it's 6x to the 7th. Alright, powers. Powers are when you have things raised to powers. Like on those other examples. Okay? On these, you multiply the exponents. And you raise the coefficients to the power. So what that means is if you have like x to the third in a parentheses with another power on the outside, that's where you multiply the powers together. But if you have a number that needs to be raised to a power, you actually do it like that number to the power. In the calculator, you would press like 2 or 3 or whatever it was to the power, and then press the little button with the up arrow, and it puts it up, and then it finds your power for you. So I'll show you what that means in a second. But if I were going to do x squared to the 4th, I'm just going to multiply 2 times 4 because I'm multiplying exponents. So I get x to the 8th. And then 2x to the 3rd to the 5th. Well, I know that x is going to be x to the 15th. But the 2 to the 5th, like in the calculator, it looks like that. And then it'll put the 5 up at the top. But 2 to the 5th, it means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So it's 32. So be really careful not to just multiply the 2 and the 5, because 2 is a coefficient, so you have to raise 2 to that power. All right, dividing. Subtract exponents. And divide the coefficients.
I misspelled divide. What did you?
Alright, so you subtract exponents. Basically what happens when you subtract exponents is you're canceling exponents. Let me show you what I mean. You do not have to do what I'm getting ready to show you, but I just think that it might help you make sense with it. If it's x to the 5th over x to the 3rd, there's 5 x's on top and 3 on bottom. And you kind of get rid of whatever's in common. So you could get rid of 3 of them. So how many's left?
2.
2, so this would be x squared. That's what I mean when I say subtract exponents. It's like you're getting rid of common factors, or common x's. So 5 minus 3 is 2, but when you look at the picture, that makes sense why there's 2 left. And the next one, you do 4 divided by 2, and you get 2. Then you do 7 minus 5, and you get 2. I'm going to add another problem. Okay, 6 over 18, x squared over x to the 5th. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you're going to divide the 6 and the 18. Be really careful you do not get 3, because 6 over 18, the 6 is smaller. When you do it in the calculator, if you press 6 divided by 18, it's going to give you a decimal. Okay, But after that, if you'll press math and number 1, which says fraction, and enter, it will give you a fraction. So if you have your calculators, do that real quickly. 6 over 18, and then you press math, enter, and enter.
Nah, where in the world? Oh my goodness, 1/3.
Okay. And then x squared over x to the 5th. Okay, if you subtract, you get a negative. But if you think about the x's the way I showed you to think about it here, you're just kind of thinking about how many's left over when you get rid of the common ones. So how many's left over if you have an x squared and an x to the 5th? 3. Where are they left at? Are they left on top or are they left on bottom? They're left on bottom, so I have to put x to the 3 on the bottom. Now on Desmos, there is a way for you to do the fraction on Desmos. I'll show you when I get finished with this section of notes, but there is a button you can press on that as well. So I'll show you that in just a second. All right, anything to the 0 power equals 1.
Oh, equals 0.
It equals 1. So 3 to the 0 is 1. 2x squared y, all to the 0 is 1. And again, I have one more example. 2x to the 0. Told you anything to the 0 power is 1. But what is being raised to the 0 power here when you talk about 2x to the 0?
So it's 1, it's just x, right?
See, only the x is raised to the 0. So 2x to the 0 is not 1. X to the 0 is 1.
So it's 2x.
And then you still have a 2. So this means 2 times 1. So this is 2. So if you have 6 over 18, you can put 6 divided by 18. And see down here, it'll give it to you in decimals. Okay? But you see this little button here under the 1? It has like a little fraction. Press that button, and then it'll change it for you as well.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So you can do that there as also. Okay, so negative exponents. So negative exponents, your rule is that you want to switch them. And what I mean by that is, if you have something to the negative exponent, basically it's on the top. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to move it to the bottom. If you have something that's a negative exponent that's on the bottom, you want to move it to the top. So on the first one there, x to the negative 3, that's on the top because you don't see a fraction. It's like there being a 1 on the bottom if you want to look at it that way. So what you do is you just move that to the bottom, and the 1 is like the coefficient in front of the x to the negative 3, and the 1 on the bottom is just staying. So you just move x to the negative 3 to the bottom and makes it x to the positive 3. Alright, 1 over x to the negative 2, that just means x to the negative 2 needs to go to the top. The 1 stays there because that's the coefficient, and you get x squared. On the bottom is just a 1 if you want to put it.
Do you have to put the y?
You have to put the x.
You have to put the x, yes. That I have handwritten for you. You only move the things with negative exponents. So the x and the 3, it stays where it is. Okay? I only switch something that has a negative. So there's a z to the negative 1 on the bottom. It goes to the top. Z to the first. There's a y to the negative 2 on top. It goes to the bottom. And then that's the answer. All right, let's look at a bunch of combinations of things. So number 1, that's a multiplying problem. So what do we do with the exponents? Add, so you get b to the 7th. Number 2 is also a multiplying problem, and we still add the exponents. There are negatives, but combine it first and then worry about the negative. So that would be a to the negative 7. And then we want to move it to the bottom to make it have a positive exponent. Okay, I'm going to skip on down to 4, and then we'll come back to 3. So number 4, is a multiplying problem like 1 and 2 because all these things are just multiplied together. What do I do with the 10 and the 10? Multiply. I'm going to put the answer above it just because I have room there. Okay, combine the x's. There's x squared and another x. So how many x's? And then there's y to the third and y to the 8. So y to the 11. That's how it works with multiplying. Multiplying is pretty simple as long as you're just thinking about putting it together and how many are there. The only difference in number 3 is that it has this part right here that's squared. Okay, so I need to deal with 2x squared before I can combine it. And see, 4y is also squared, so I need to do both of those two things separately. Okay? So 2x squared means that you're going to have 2 squared and then x squared. Okay? 4y squared means you're going to have 4 squared and then y squared. Now, you can just figure out what 2 squared is and what 4 squared is and multiply. Or you can put 2 squared times 4 squared in the calculator just like that. Okay? It should be 4 times 16, which comes out to be 64, but you can do it either way. And then with your x's, you just put x squared and then y squared. You don't combine the x and the y's because they're different letters. All right, 5 and 6. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the negative 6 into 36. So go ahead and do that and see what fraction you get. Negative 6 divided by 36, and then change it to a fraction. Negative 1 over 6. Okay? Now let's deal with the a's and then the b's. So we have 4 a's on top, 7 a's on the bottom. How many you got left?
3.
Where are they at?
The top.
Bottom.
Bottom, yeah, yep.
Okay, look at the b's. We got a b on top. We got a b squared on the bottom. How many b's do you have left? 1 on the bottom. And look at the c's. We have c to the 8 and c.
On top.
7 on the top. Do number 6 by yourself.
Oh my goodness.
Alright, so we got negative 4/3 or 4 over negative 3. It doesn't matter where the negative is. Alright, let's subtract our m's. We got 8 on top and 1 on bottom, so we have
Top.
7 left on top. We've got a y to the 6th on top and a y to the 4th on the bottom.
On top.
Y2, and it's on the top.
Oh goodness gracious.
Alright, number 7. On number 7, what part do you think that we need to do first?
Multiply the negative.
We actually need to do something with this exponent first. The negative is just on the outside. We just know that our answer is going to be negative, so that's no big deal. But we do need to worry a little bit about that 8y squared.
64 W2 squared?
So be careful when you do this. Make sure that you put 8 to the second in the calculator, 8 times 8, which is 64. And then W also has to be that power, so we have W squared. All right, and then we multiply 4 times 64. I think it's 256. Combine your W's. You have W to the negative 3 and W to the second,
So just negative W.
negative 1.
Yes.
And then there's nothing to combine with the z's, so I just put the z there. And then the negative on the outside just goes there. Last step, I'm going to move that w and the z to the bottom because they have negative exponents and we want them to have positive exponents. The negative number does not move because it's just a number and it's not an exponent. Alright, last problem, number 8. Several things we're going to do. First thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply the top out. So 3 times 5 is 15. Combine the x's so you get x to the negative 1. Combine the y's and you get negative 5. On the bottom we have, okay, if we do this part right here that's raised to the 4th, what do I do with the negative 3 and the 4? Multiply. So that's x to the negative 12 Then bring down that y to the negative 2. Then we combine. Leave the 15 where it is. And let's look at the x's. Remember, you subtract the exponent, so you do it like this. Negative 1 minus negative 12. Negative 1 minus negative 12 is 11.
Oh, that's what I said. You said no.
And then look at the y's. Negative 5 minus negative 2.
3.
Negative 3. Because it's negative. And then move it to the bottom. And it becomes positive 3.